Richard Syrett's Strange Planet, following the truth wherever it leads, exposing evil and corruption and the secret machinations of powerful elites, revealing the high strangeness beneath the surface of our supposed reality. Coming to you from the Great White North and his studio beneath the stairs. Here's Richard.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to another episode of Strange Planet. And it is a far stranger planet than we can possibly comprehend. And if you'd like to get a little deeper into this podcast, Strange Planet, you might want to consider becoming a premium subscriber. And it's real easy to do. Just click on the link in the episode notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. You gain access to commercial-free listening, plus you receive special bonus material, bonus episodes that are produced exclusively for premium subscribers. And check out the website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca. Scroll down and you'll see a portal there where you can enter your name and your email address, and you'll start receiving my free monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, the official newsletter of Strange Planet, once every month. All right. How did you sleep last night? Not too good? Well, you're not alone. We're going to delve into the war on sleep right now with Pam Killeen. She's a health coach, author, sleep enthusiast. Me too. And also an advocate for circadian health. And her website is pamkilleen.com. I'll put the link in the episode notes so you can check out her website. Pam, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's such an honor to meet you finally after all these years.
Thank you. Circadian health. I mean, I'm aware of, circadian rhythms, but I've never heard the two sort of put together like that. Circadian health. This idea that we're not getting a good night's sleep. Is this a problem of modern living? Is this a modern disease, or has this always been with us?
It's a modern disease. It's relatively new to humankind. And I think it coincides with the rise of the Industrial Revolution in the early 1800s. And then if you fast forward to the assembly line, for example. And so once we became more and more industrialized and we started, developing midnight shifts and just scattered schedules in general, it really disrupted our circadian rhythm. And then when you couple that with the synthetic lighting, the artificial lights that we're exposed to every single day as well, this has actually further disrupted our circadian rhythm. And I think to simplify what that really means is, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, is that when you fly anywhere on this planet for any length of time, and you have maybe a 4-hour difference in schedule, you feel a little jet lagged when you're going back and forth from your hometown. And that's essentially your circadian rhythm. That's a manifestation of your circadian rhythm being disrupted. And unfortunately, you don't have to get into a plane and fly to Vancouver to have a disrupted circadian rhythm. You can have a disrupted circadian rhythm just by having a very scattered sleep schedule. And on top of that, exposing yourself to synthetic lights at the wrong times of the day and excessively throughout the day. And to add insult to injury, of course, not going outside into the natural sunlight as well will disrupt your circadian rhythm. So I think when you couple all of that together, it's a perfect storm for poor sleep. And today in the news on the CBC, they're talking about children not sleeping well. And they really don't offer any solutions to these poor parents who are absolutely exhausted when their children are up and down all night long. And it's really a travesty. Parents are scratching their head trying to figure out how to help their children sleep better because they're not getting the sleep that they need. And there are solutions to this problem. And this circadian health, circadian biology story is getting more and more developed year after year after year. So now we have actual tangible solutions that we can turn to in order to help our sleep and, our children's sleep as well.
Do we know, based on, anthropological studies, what our natural, whatever that means, circadian rhythm should be? I mean, for example, do we know how back in the days of when we were hunter-gatherers, for example, what kind of sleep patterns did we have?
Yeah, you can turn to a farmer today, for example, and you can see what a regular pattern should be. But historically, we would go to sleep at sunset and we would wake up at sunrise. And so we had that kind of rhythm every single day. And unfortunately, we're negating that today with our fast new world. And so I think we can look back towards our evolution to know that we did have stable sleep patterns at one point in our lives, in our history, and the carpet's just been swept from underneath us. We really don't know what that means anymore, except maybe, like I mentioned, some of our farmers today will know. And I've known a lot of farmers over the years, and they do go to bed at, say, 9 o'clock at night when the sun is setting, and they do wake up at sunrise. And so it's something that I think we can do, but we have to make it a priority to do. And when you do it, you never go back. You start feeling so much better once you get into a really good circadian rhythm. And you realize, geez, this disrupted lifestyle that I had before, where I would stay up till midnight watching TV, I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't go back to sleep again. All of these types of complaints, they start vaporizing once you start getting a really stable circadian rhythm going. So I'm hoping that this information will reach out far and wide, and we can start revolutionizing sleep and returning it to what it used to be.
So, the idea that you should get a solid, uninterrupted 8 hours, is that, again, one of those modern inventions? Like now we say breakfast, the most important meal of the day. It turns out it was the folks at Kellogg's who kind of pushed that, but what about the solid 8 hours? Is that enough? Is it too little?
8 hours is a good gauge. I think given how exhausted we are as a society, 9 hours wouldn't be terrible either. Certainly children need up to maybe even 10 hours of sleep. And they're not getting it because of those screens. You talk to people all the time where their kids go to bed, and the next thing you know, they're on their screens. The parents think that they're sleeping and they're not. And they're on their screens till 1 o'clock in the morning. And then they get up for school and they're exhausted and they can't learn. It's just one of these things where I don't know why more intervention isn't taking place, but I don't think the intervention is taking place simply because people don't know about the importance of natural sunlight. Not only that, they're terrified of the sun, and they're terrified of fresh air right now, given what's happened over the last 4.5 years. So I think we have to undo some of that fear mongering and get people to understand it's really important to be out in the sun, not to be afraid of the sun, not to be afraid of fresh air. And then our children can return to going outdoors, playing normally as children did when I was a child in the 1960s. In the 1960s, children fought to go back inside. They wanted to be outside in the fresh air and the sunshine. And nowadays, unfortunately, people are hiding like cavemen in their houses, and it's just not natural. It's not meant to be like that. And one of the reasons why it's so critical to be out in the sun is because it does set your hormones. It does support your neurotransmitters. And so the more you are outside in the day in natural sunlight, the better the sleep quality will be. And so on top of that, when you come inside, you're exposed to these unnatural lights. So at night, especially, you want to start dimming your lights inside the house so that you're not being told at 9 o'clock at night that it's daylight. And that happens, it's really, really hard to have a high quality sleep at night because you've gone to bed exposed to all these lights that are telling your body that it's still daylight. So we have to remediate a lot of the lighting hygiene that we have throughout our houses. And thankfully, there are solutions to this problem today where you can buy lights that can be dimmed, or you can buy lights that have orange or red colors that minimize your exposure to one of the colors within the white light, of course, is blue. And that is the color of the light that's most stimulating and causing a lot of the problems.
Right. What about blackout blinds? How important are they?
So when you look at your overall sleep or bedroom oasis, if you want to call it that, you want your bedroom to be as dark as possible. So you're absolutely right, Richard. Those blackout curtains are really critical because if there's any light coming into your bedroom at night, it's telling your body, again, that it's daylight, and it's going to disrupt your sleep. And so a lot of people don't know this, but even your skin has photoreceptors on it. So even a little bit of light touching your skin will actually signal to the body that it's daylight. So you want your room as dark as possible. And there are various strategies to blacken your room. And I would really highly encourage people to do that. I don't think it's enough to wear the sleep masks at night. It is helpful, but I think you need to do more to blacken your room. And other strategies you can do to help support your sleep, of course, that are a bit separate from the darkening of your room would be wearing earplugs as well and using white noise. And one of the reasons why that can help, of course, is because people are on such high alert these days that even a little bit of noise is going to disrupt their sleep. So these are other sleep hygiene measures that some people might need in order to make sure that they can have a good solid sleep at night. So going to bed at night, you have to have a routine, I believe, to set yourself up for good sleep. And so it's a little difficult today because of the screens, because there's so much to watch, almost too much to watch on TV, given all the streaming services and so on, not just your cell phones. But if you can somehow or another take yourself away from that routine and maybe instead read a book or just sit and maybe chat with your family and reconnect, just having family time before bed and just telling stories and that kind of thing under red lights or orange lights at night, so that you get away from the screen time and have more real-time activities before you go to bed, and make sure it's just a very calm environment as well. And some people, they may want to meditate, they might want to do a little stretching before they go to bed. Again, all of these things need to be done away from the bright lights. And over time, as you adopt some of these measures, you'll start noticing that your sleep is better. Another thing that is really, really critical is to get out in the morning and watch the sun rise. And it's that bright light in the morning from the sun. That's what actually starts your hormonal production for the day. It helps normalize and start the hormonal production. And one of the hormones that it helps produce is melatonin. And so, unfortunately, a lot of people are taking melatonin, and we really shouldn't be turning to melatonin, exogenous sources of melatonin, to help us sleep at night. What we really should be doing is getting up in the morning, and the first thing you do is you go outside and you watch the sunrise. And that actually sets up the circadian clock for the day. It helps start the production of melatonin, so that when you go to bed at night and the darkness happens, then you use your melatonin for sleep. And so we've got a lot of this stuff backwards, unfortunately, and we've got to return to some of these basics in order to have a good, solid night's sleep. And I know that over half the population is complaining right now about not getting enough sleep and walking around feeling like zombies, Richard. And can you imagine being the head of a large corporation, and people are walking around and they're not getting along, their productivity is quite low, illness rates are very high, and the CEOs of these corporations have got to step forward and say, we need more sleep hygiene. We need our staff to get healthy in order for the company to be healthy. And
what about the air traffic controllers, long distance truck drivers, someone who's performing open heart surgery? You want those people to be well rested. Pam, we'll take a quick time out. We'll come back and we'll talk more about the war on sleep. And we're talking about the war on sleep. Pam Killeen is a health coach, author, sleep enthusiast, and advocate for circadian health. The website, pamkilleen.com. Pam, and then Killeen is spelled Killeen. Pam Killeen.
Killeen. Yeah.
My apologies.
Double L, double E. Sorry about that.
That's my fault. I didn't get enough sleep last night. I'm looking, my eyes are a little. Pam Killeen, Killeen. Thank you. What are the, aside from being irritable and, maybe not being super focused if we don't get our solid 8 hours, what are the long-term health issues for people that are sleep deprived or not getting a proper sleep?
Okay, the list is long, Richard. Poor sleep is associated with so many chronic health problems. I've got a list here I thought I would have for the show. Poor sleep is associated with lower cognitive function, higher risk for cardiovascular disease, depression, diabetes, cognitive decline, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, obesity, and the list could go on and on and on. I've read research where it's associated with Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's. It's really, really wide-reaching in terms of how it will impact us negatively if we do not get enough sleep. And we have this expression in society that sleep is for the weak. And I know that could be interpreted a couple of different ways, but I think a lot of us think the less sleep, the stronger you are, kind of thing. And that's just wrong. It's the absolute opposite. So we need to start embracing sleep and honoring it for what it is. And it's a time where our bodies need to rest and rebuild. And there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This has to happen. We have to have a change in society where we prioritize our sleep.
Yeah, that's a great point. You'll often hear, and I've used this expression, I'll sleep when I'm dead. There'll be plenty of time to sleep when I'm dead. I don't want to miss anything, or I got too much work to do, or what have you. But as you say, this is kind of it's almost becoming like a badge of honor or something. It's like, well, I get by on 4 hours sleep, 6 hours sleep. I know people who get by on for long periods of time, 4, 5, 6 hours. Is that because they're built differently, or do they not really appreciate that they're not well?
Oh, they're not well. And if you give them another 5 or 10 years, you're going to see more degeneration occur. So it's not a badge of honor. And I think if you get to know these people, they could speak like that on the surface, if you meet them in public or you only spend short spurts of time with them. But if you try living with them, then you're going to see a different personality. You're going to see that person probably, gets angry easily, has a very poor cognition. They can be very negative, very rigid in their thinking. They're not going to be easy to get along with. So it's one thing to meet people short term and listen to them brag about only needing 4 hours of sleep a night, but try living with them and you're going to see an entirely different story.
Right. Talk to me about the methods of determining whether you may feel like you're getting 8 hours. Well, I went to bed. I think I fell asleep at 11 and I woke up at 7. I got my 8 hours, but they're maybe not necessarily sleeping deeply for those 8 hours. What kind of methods can we use to track our sleep?
Okay. So first, the main method is to wake up and feel refreshed, right? And feel like you had a really, really good night's sleep. But another thing that's happening these days that I think is quite helpful for the sleep industry, if you will, are the trackers. Now, I will start by saying that these trackers, it's a new industry. The technology is quite new. It's certainly not perfect. So there are a lot of flaws within the tracker industry. But what they can do is give you some kind of pattern that you should be watching for. So don't take them literally. If you have disposable income and you want to experiment with one or two, by all means, give it a try. But if you don't have the disposable income to spend on a tracker, don't do it. Just go by how you feel in the morning. So for those who do have the money to invest in a tracker or two, maybe even 3, if they're sleep fanatics like me, you will get an idea as to what happens when you sleep at night. And one really interesting, or a couple of interesting things you can watch for when you buy a tracker is watch the effect of alcohol on your sleep. Even half a glass of beer or half a glass of wine will negatively impact your sleep. And I think this is a good thing. I think as people are buying these trackers, fewer and fewer people are actually drinking alcohol, which I'm no Puritan, but I think that's a good thing for their health. And other things like doing stimulating exercise before you go to bed at night. You'll see metrics within your tracker that are going to be negative, that are going to show that stimulating exercise before you go to bed will also negatively impact your sleep. So there's much you can glean from these trackers to develop healthier habits for sleep. So I would encourage people to explore and try them, but not to take them too literally because some of the numbers are just not going to be correct.
What about sleep clinics? I mean, there's a modern invention, right? Sleep clinics. Now we have those.
I didn't preface with this, but one of the reasons I'm so interested in sleep is because I had debilitating insomnia for years and years and years. So back in my 20s and my 30s, I hardly slept. It was a nightmare. Can you imagine, like in the 1980s, having insomnia and my memory was shot and I couldn't tell anybody about it because you're in your 20s. How could you have like a dementia type of condition in your 20s? And I knew that there was a connection between the fact that I wasn't sleeping and my memory being shot, right? At any rate, I had a GP who was holistic and he tried everything he could to help me. I was more than just a zombie in my 20s and my 30s. I was deathly ill. And so one of the things I did do was I went to a sleep clinic and you sleep overnight and they put all these wires on you. And the bottom line is that it amounted to no solutions for me. It didn't help me at all. And so I was more frustrated after going to a sleep clinic and a sleep specialist and so on. They really don't have the answers or didn't. And again, this was back in the 1980s, but as I hear from a lot of people today, they're still not offering a lot of tangible solutions, maybe sleep medications. And of course, the side effect of sleep medications can be severe. So I think what people really need to turn towards is really, really healthy sleep hygiene habits. I mentioned a few already, but one of the most important things you can do is watch the sunrise in the morning to start setting yourself up for good sleep at that night. Another thing you can do that's critical is, and I touched on it earlier, is dimming your lights at night so you don't tell your body, it's daylight, right? But you can also invest in blue light blocking glasses, which also will help tell your brain that it's almost time for bed. And there's varying degrees of blue light blocking glasses that you can buy. The dark orange or the red are probably the best ones to buy for night use. And, don't despair, give it some time. But I know that people who do those two simple things within a few days, they start feeling better, they start sleeping better. There are things you can do. And it's not, the thing about this, Richard, is doing it this way is not a high cost. It's not a lot of cost attached to it. Some of these blue light blocking glasses are $20, $30. I have a podcast that I just started. It's called Circadian Reboot with Pam Killeen. And I interviewed a guy, Jeff Gibson, and he buys those industrial safety glasses. He buys them by the case. And he says they're $1.50 each. And he hands them out to all of his friends and family. And he says he's tested these glasses and they're about 95% effective for blocking out the blue light. So it's not an expensive thing to do, but it does take, discipline, and it takes you prioritizing your sleep at night to make these healthy choices. And it can be life-changing, absolutely life-changing once you start understanding the effect of light on your sleep. And children. Another guy I interviewed, Daniel White, he's been working in schools in Guernsey over in the UK, and he's been doing sleep education with children in the schools. He's taught 500 children about proper sleep and sleep habits. And he's got kids over in Guernsey wearing the blue light blockers before they go to bed at night. And they're telling everybody, you've got to wear these blue light blockers before you go to bed at night, and you'll have a better sleep. And so these are measures that are definitely tangible. It's not woo-woo. It's not like I'm asking everybody to go back in time and live like our ancestors did. You can still live in our modern day world and adopt some of these measures and still feel quite normal. You don't have to wear your tin hat society stuff and think everybody thinks you're crazy. But you've got to do these things if you want to be healthy today, in my opinion.
I'm guessing you would say that having a television in your bedroom is a very bad idea.
It is. It is a bad idea. Any of these kinds of screens in your bedroom at night are a bad idea. You can put software on your laptop or your cell phone to minimize the blue light. One is called Iris, another one is Flux. And so you can do these things. You can change your settings on your phone so that it's more red than blue. So there's things you can do like that to minimize your exposure to the blue light at night. But watching TV at night, it's hard to get away from that habit. Make sure you're wearing your blue light blockers if you do watch TV at night, and try not to watch anything too stimulating, maybe a nice light comedy or something like that before you go to bed at night, just to keep your stress hormones low.
Pam, we'll take another time out. Pam Killeen, The War on Sleep. The podcast is Circadian Reboot with Pam Killeen. Back with more of our conversation right after these. Pam Killeen is here, and we are talking about circadian health and how to get a good night's sleep and how absolutely essential a good night's sleep is. What about Wi-Fi, the effects of EMF? Would you recommend turning off your modem at night?
Yes, yeah. Turn off your modem at night. Make sure there are no active plugs beside your bed or your bedroom. A lot of people, sometimes what they do is they just turn the breaker off in their bedroom at night, and that can make a big difference in your sleep quality. So if you have I don't even know if anybody uses alarm clocks anymore. I mean, you have your cell phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do have an alarm clock beside your bed, make sure that light isn't going to interfere with your sleep. And on top of that, the EMFs that would come from that light. So if you can, just get away from using any electronic devices in your bedroom, even on the other side of the wall where you're sleeping. What if you have a refrigerator on the other side of the wall where your head is in bed? I mean, that, can put off EMFs as well and be disruptive towards your sleep. So try to be very aware of these, what are known as non-native EMFs, and try to certainly for at least 8 hours a day, minimize your exposure to these things, because they can also be very dehydrating as well and disrupt your mineral balance in the body and so on. So there's all sorts of repercussions from being exposed to these non-native EMFs. And your bedroom at night when you're sleeping is probably the best time to reduce your exposure to these things, because as you get out into the real world during the day, it can be really hard to control your exposure to these things. So use your bedroom as a time to break yourself away from these things.
Sleep apnea seems to be an absolute epidemic. And what is sleep apnea, first of all?
Yeah, it's a medical condition, and I try to stay away from anything that's a medical condition, but I do know a lot of people who are struggling with sleep apnea and they use those breathing devices. It's a complex issue, probably not something I should get into because of the medical label here, but I would say that the measures that I'm talking about are universal, that I think everybody can benefit from what I'm talking about. And if you have sleep apnea, I don't think you have anything to lose by adopting some of the measures I'm mentioning today. Whether or not it'll be enough to get you off the sleep apnea machines is a whole other story. But you need some really, really strict measures to overcome something like sleep apnea. But I think it's doable. I think it's doable with enough discipline and enough passion and enough support. I think you can overcome anything. I often say if you have a pulse, as long as you have a pulse, you can barely get well.
What about the sleeping position? I tend to flip-flop. Sometimes I'm on my side, and then I've heard sleeping on your side is not good. It's not good for, it can create acid reflux. It can be hard on your heart. I don't know if that's true. But I'm on my side, then I'm on my stomach, and then I'm on my back. What about sleep position? How important is that?
Yeah, I don't stress that too much because it's a pattern that's really hard to break people away from. So you sleep in a position where you're most comfortable. I'm not a big fan of people sleeping on their stomachs, but right side, left side, the back is not the greatest place to sleep because unfortunately it forces you to have your mouth open. And you really want to be nasal breathing as much as you can. So on your side is best for the breathing pattern because you're more apt to close your mouth if you're lying on your right side or your left side. I'm also trained in Buteyko breathing, so I recommend, if people are interested, is to actually tape your mouth shut at night using the soft paper tape and breathe through your nose. And you wake up feeling a lot better if you're nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. But another thing that you can explore doing in terms of your sleep position is to do something called inclined bed therapy. And you put your bed on a bit of an angle. And according to archaeologists and so on, that we used to do this a lot in ancient times, that our beds were on a really slight angle. And it could help with digestion. If you've had a meal just before you go to bed, it could help that. But it also is supposed to help in terms of draining the lymphatic system of the brain. So it helps with detoxification if you can be on a slight angle if you're in bed at night. And to do that, you need to buy risers or books or bricks or something and just elevate your bed just a little bit, maybe 5 degrees. And that is supposed to have some health benefits as well.
Right. I remember the old Craftmatic beds, like a hospital bed, basically, where you can raise the head or you can raise the feet. We have to talk about pillows. I mean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I know it's such a personal item, the pillow, but I just can't seem to find. I've tried the cooling pillows. My wife bought me this beautiful pillow, and then I ended up having to take like half the stuffing out because my neck wasn't feeling right. Talk to me about the importance of a pillow, and how do you find a pillow that works?
I probably have 20 different pillows in my house. I just experiment until I find what's right for me. I think that's all anybody can do. The sales gimmicks and so on, I don't think you can listen to them, because some of these pillows that are supposed to be specially designed for sleep and your neck and the distance between your shoulder and your ear, for example, it's still going to be very individual. So I wouldn't buy into the hype. I would just experiment with different pillows until you find that one that's the most comfortable for you.
I recently watched, my wife and I watched this documentary. I think it was called Earthing. And the idea where you put your feet barefoot on the ground, maybe for 2 hours a day, touch the earth, and the I guess the electrons come up from the earth into your body, and it's best to come through the feet. And now you can buy, in fact, I have someone from this Earthing company. They produce special sheets and blankets and things that are grounded, literally grounded. Do you have any thoughts on that in terms of facilitating a good night's sleep? Grounding yourself?
I'm a huge fan of grounding. And when you look at the invention of the rubber-soled shoes, that's another thing that has interfered with our body's physiology as well. And so historically, yes, we would have been outside in our bare feet, grounded to the ground, soaking up all these wonderful electrons. And that is something that's very calming for the nervous system, basically. When I talk to people who are regularly grounding, they will report to me that they start feeling more calm, more focused, and that they sleep better at night as well. So that's another remedy you can add to your picture for improving your sleep. You can ideally go outside in your yard, for example, barefooted. And if the grass is moist, you get better conductivity, so you will actually soak up potentially more electrons that way. You can do it by touching a tree. You can grab some electrons that way. But this is why we have so many sweat glands on our hands and our feet, is because of the moisture. It's where we would have been crawling on all fours or walking on both feet, but it's just evolutionary that we soaked up so many electrons through our hands and our feet. And so you mentioned the devices. And again, that's something that's going to be very individual. I don't know that some people might experience a bit of a detoxification reaction from doing too much grounding too soon, too fast. So the best way to ground is outside with your bare feet, if you can, in your yard on grass or perhaps on a beach where the sand is a bit moist. If that's something that you're not able to do, you can try buying these grounding devices. Some of them you can attach to the sole of your foot, or you can wrap it around your ankle or your wrist. You can buy blankets, pillows. You can buy all sorts of devices to help you ground. But I would caution you maybe to start slowly with those devices. And just in case you do have a kind of a reaction, a detox reaction from it. But at a minimum, I would say 20 minutes outside on grass every day if you can. If you miss a day, don't be hard on yourself. And try to be outside in nature is really, you want to mimic nature. So what did we do from an evolutionary standpoint? We were outside barefoot in the grass, right? So that's what you want to try and mimic if you can every single day. Yeah. And if you're working indoors, Richard, outside, some people take their smoke breaks. Well, I think companies need to start doing light breaks. So when you have a chance for a 10 or 15-minute break, go outside. Rain or shine, just go outside and be exposed to the natural sunlight and fresh air. And if a group of you want to get together and go barefoot on some grass while you do it, that's even better. But these are measures that I would love to see in place, even not just from the corporation standpoint, but even with our children in the schools, if we could.
Yeah, I always tell my kids when they're stuck on the computer for too long, I say, go outside. The graphics are better out there.
Nice.
What about supplements? Anything that you recommend, or herbal remedies, herbal tea, anything prior to bed? Is that part of your routine?
So I've just relaunched my website, and this podcast is new as well. And my take on things now is that we start with these circadian habits before you even consider taking supplements. See how far you can get by doing things that are ostensibly quite inexpensive or even free. And then explore taking some supplements. I am a big fan of digestive health, but I don't think that you can get very far with digestive health without exposing yourself to the natural sunlight, because sunlight actually has a positive effect on your digestion. And a lot of people have digestive distress. So while on my website, I do feature some digestive supplements, I would still say, go out in the sun, go out grounding, be at one with Mother Nature, if you will, before you start purchasing supplements, because I don't think you're going to do yourself any favors by not embracing Mother Nature, by not going back outside in the sun, barefoot in the grass, so to speak. And over time, as you get more and more disciplined with your sky gazing, exposure to the sun, grounding, etc., and you're still having issues, then maybe then explore taking certain supplements for your digestion. But I don't think that I don't think you're going to have to take them forever, especially if you're sleeping better at night. I mean, even sleep, Richard, there's research to show that if you have poor sleep quality, your gut flora is going to be out of balance. So I know a lot of people take probiotics, but I think they're wasting their money if they haven't addressed their sleep issues.
Let's get back to children for a moment. We were talking about, evolutionarily, we would sleep on an incline. Well, if you go back to, again, the caveman days, as we say, like all primates, we would sleep with our children. They would sleep right next to us. And then that became kind of taboo. Even, if the child is crying all night, doctors would say, you can't go in there. You can't go into the bedroom and pick up your child. You're going to train them to become dependent on you and so forth. What are your thoughts on sleeping with your babies, your toddlers, sharing the same bed?
It's a very individual answer, but I would say if they're disrupting your sleep, don't do it. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep is too valuable. I know that some people have different theories about families sleeping together and so on, but if you're missing sleep because of it, then it's not worth it.
I guess I was asking, is it better for the children if they're sleeping with their parents? I mean, again, evolutionarily, that's all primates. We nest, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I haven't looked at the research in that, but again, if the families are doing this and there's a lot of positivity coming out of it, then I wouldn't discourage it. The only thing I would say is that if it's disrupting your sleep, then you need to reconsider. I say that about people with pets too. I mean, how many people do I talk to who have pets and the dog or the cat is disrupting their sleep at night? And I say, your sleep is more important. You have to prioritize it. So yeah, it's just really tragic. Some people I know I was there. I wasn't sleeping at all. I was sleeping 3 or 4 hours a night if I was lucky. Some weeks I was sleeping 3 or 4 hours a week when insomnia was its worst. It was horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But I mean, if you're not sleeping a solid, let's just say 8 hours of sleep at night, you've got to make some changes and you've got to address some of these things, because without sleep, it's really hard to enjoy your day. It's really hard to focus. It's really hard to set goals for yourself. Life is just not a pleasure when you're not getting enough sleep. And once you do start sleeping, all of a sudden, life becomes what it should be. You should have all sorts of joie de vivre in your life. You should look forward to things. You should be keen and eager to learn. And, a lot of these things are just simply not so today. My parents have recently passed away, and I used to talk to them about what it was like when they were children. They were born in the 1930s. And they said in their days, maybe one kid in the class was a little bit off, a little bit quirky, maybe one. And me in the 1960s, same thing, maybe one quirky kid in the classroom. But when we were kids, everybody enjoyed learning. Everybody looked forward to going to school. They were respectful of adults. There was just a joie de vivre among my peers when we were kids, having fun and wanting to be outside. And I don't see that today. I just see kids walking around so listless. I don't see the joie de vivre as much as I should. And I think we can return to that as long as we start prioritizing our sleep. I'm not saying nutrition isn't important. It is. But what's been neglected, what we haven't talked about enough, is sleep and sleep quality and the circadian rhythm that goes along with healthy sleep. When I started researching this a few years ago, the research was quite new. So I'm saying if you haven't heard about this, it's not a surprise because the research is quite new. But now that we have so many practitioners learning about this and so many groups are starting and training people on how to adopt these measures, I think that it's a burgeoning field of study, and I think more and more people are going to embrace it. I'm just, now that my website is starting, I'm starting a support group called the Sleep Better Forum. So it's a member community where people can come in and actually share notes about things that they may have done that improved their sleep, or things that they did that actually worsened their sleep. And we can go in and we can talk about it every single day in my support group. And these types of support groups are growing in leaps and bounds today because people are starting to learn that they have to return to basics if they're going to have a good night's sleep.
How do you feel about naps? And I'm asking, hoping you're going to be a fan, because I love my afternoon naps. I feel like that hour or 45 minutes in the afternoon on the couch is like the most restful time. I mean, I feel great when I wake up from my nap. Are you a fan of naps, or am I doing something wrong?
No, you're not doing anything wrong. Napping is perfectly acceptable as long as it's not interrupting your sleep at night. That's about the only thing I would say about it. But personally, I don't nap. I've never been a napper, but I'm not adverse to, I wouldn't I would nap if I felt the need for a nap. But if you need a nap, then by all means.
But the fact that I feel I need a nap, is that indicative of a poor night's sleep?
No, not necessarily. No. I would say if you go to bed at, say, 10 o'clock at night and you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you've had a really solid night's sleep, that's sort of what your goal would be. It might be 11 to 7, 9 to 5, but a lot of the people that I've been interviewing who are circadian researchers or practitioners, this is the window that they're looking at. And it's very similar to what a farmer would be, really.
Right.
A farmer's schedule would be.
Yeah. Well, some of the most, sorry, I was just going to say, so many of the most successful people talk about, I think they even have a name for it. They call it the 5 a.m. club. They get up at 5 and they just get right at it.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not enough to know. That's not enough information to go on. You want to know that they had a solid sleep until 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Just let's recap. Give us an assignment here. Maybe 5 things, 3 to 5 things we should do tonight preparing for bed.
Oh, perfect question. So depending on what time of the day it is, I hope that you woke up this morning and you actually watched the sunrise for maybe 5, even 10 minutes. At that time, I hope you had bare feet and you were maybe sitting in a chair with your feet on maybe some wet grass, or you were walking around in your yard while you were watching the sunrise. Then I want you to have breakfast, and hopefully there's a really high quality protein in that breakfast to get your day going. Another essential thing that I didn't mention earlier that is really important to do is to have a walk, go out for a walk in the morning sun. It could be a 15 or 20 minute walk, something along that line. So that's already a lot of healthy circadian habits right there in the morning, setting you up for the rest of the day. And then during the day, I want you to get outside and have light breaks. I want you to look outside into the sky if you can. You don't have to look directly at the sun, but you're going to absorb as much of the light rays as you can from the sun. Try not to wear glasses or sunglasses or caps or anything along that line. You just want to have as much exposure to the sun during the day as you can. If you're working by a window, open the window a crack, and some of that sunlight will actually penetrate, and that will be beneficial. Same thing in a car. If you're driving your car, open your window just a little bit and allow some of those sun rays to come in. And then if we fast forward to the evening, after you've had dinner, depending on what time the sun is setting, you want to start wearing your blue light blocking glasses. You want to start turning off or dimming the lights in your house and really just slowing down. Story time, reading books. If you have lights on, hopefully they're like an amber color or a red color, something along that line. And try to get to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And in a few days, if you adopt some of these measures, hopefully you start to notice that your sleep quality improves. As somebody who had debilitating insomnia, it might take more than a few days for certain people. It might take a few weeks. And that's why I decided to start the Sleep Better Forum if people are interested in some kind of support system, because I know how bad it can get with insomnia. But all of these measures that I just mentioned, and I think I mentioned more than 5, Richard.
That's okay.
All of these measures should have a positive effect on your sleep and sleep quality, and therefore your overall health.
The podcast is Circadian Reboot with Pam Killeen, and it's Killeen. PamKilleen.com is the website, Pam. All fantastic information. Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Thank you, Richard.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.